Yeah, so that's not a logo that I thought I was going to see again. After the ROG phone was such a failure, I was essentially just boycotting Asus at this point, and I didn't think I was going to buy another one of their products. And then I got this. Well, we're not off to a good start. Immediately during the setup, it forced me to activate a copy of McAfee antivirus. There was no option to get around that. And yes, I could just uninstall it, but the bloatware on this thing is absurd. So like, I just set it up. Like, I haven't even done Windows updates or anything. So there's so much crap in here. So I prepared a USB stick of Windows 10 straight from Microsoft's website, and I'm going to do a clean install, and I'm just going to completely wipe this thing. However, this computer is in RAID 0 from factory, so I'm going to do a boot test just the way it is right now. I'm going to do a boot test to see how fast the boot is, and then I'm going to install Windows 10 only on one of the SSDs, so that way I can compare the RAID and then just a regular SSD for the boot speed to see if there's a significant increase, and if there isn't, then the other SSD that's in this is going to be my Linux partition, or Linux drive. It's not going to be a partition, it'll be a separate own drive, which will make things a lot simpler. So I'm kind of hoping there's not going to be a significant increase in speed, so that way one SSD is for Windows, one is for Linux, and then I can keep them separate from that point, which will make things significantly simpler in the future. So boot test, let's see how fast this is. Okay, dead ass, not making this up. I was about to shut it off, and this just popped up. And the first thing that I can see is McAfee and Dropbox. And it's asking me to sign up for them, even though it already made me do this in the setup. Okay. We're deleting it. It's okay. Everything's fine. We're getting rid of the bloatware. I'm gonna try and push these at the exact same time. Okay, settle down. Let's just get these like as close as possible. Okay. So we're only gonna be going until the login screen. So 12 seconds. Okay, so that's factory. So now we're going to disable RAID in the BIOS, and then, well, actually, I don't know if it's, I've actually haven't gone in the BIOS yet. It might actually be set up normal with the software RAID. But I'm gonna go into the BIOS to see if it's in RAID, and if it is, I'm gonna disable it, and I'm gonna install Windows 10. So I'm just going to leave you out of that part. Well, I'll show you how to disable RAID if it is in there, but I'm going to install Windows, and then once I have it set back up, we'll do another boot test to see if it increased anything. And if there's like a huge improvement or whatever, then there's a huge decline in the boot time, then I will leave it in RAID and we'll figure something out for installing Linux. But if it's fine, then there's no point running RAID on this because it boots fast enough off of a single NVMe. So that's what we're gonna figure out right now. Okay, so I just went through the BIOS and everything. It is extremely limited. There's like nothing in there. Like you can't even change the cursor speed for the UEFI stuff, so it's super limited. So just hitting escape here to bring up the boot menu. I'm gonna boot from the USB stick. Now I'm booting off the USB stick so I can install Windows, but there's like nothing in the BIOS. There's nothing to change RAID setups or anything, so it has to be a software RAID. I can't think of any other way that they would have been able to do this unless it's actually locked into RAID, or maybe a newer BIOS, because it was BIOS 3.07. I haven't checked if there's a new one yet. But I'm going to install Windows now. So, yeah. Well, the ones out there with a keen eye will notice that all of these are drive 0. So that means that it's a hardware RAID. And I can't disable it. Okay, I'm gonna have to figure something out here, because I can't disable RAID because there's only one drive. So this isn't a software RAID through Windows. This is a hardware RAID through the BIOS, which was set up to have both NVMEs recognized as one drive, which is why all of the partitions say drive 0 and there's no other drive. So I'm gonna boot back into the factory install, see if there's a BIOS update, and then maybe I can disable RAID or something, or maybe downgrade to an older version where that was available. I'm not sure. I'm gonna have to look into this, and then I'm gonna come back. Okay, so I updated the BIOS. We're on 308 now. There's still no option to change the cursor speed. It's still really slow. But we do have the option for RAID, so that's good now. And I already ran into an issue, is when you go in here to delete this RAID volume, as soon as you delete it, it locks you in this screen and you can't get out until you create another RAID. So what you have to do first is you have to go down to SATA configuration, and then you have to go from here and change the SATA mode selection from the Intel RAID controller over to AHCI. So once you've changed it to AHCI, then you go back, then you go in here, go to the RAID, delete the RAID. Yes, I want to delete the RAID. And now we can go back just like normal, and we can get to like the rest of the BIOS settings if we want to, but we've already done everything, so now we're done. So now we can just save, exit, and we can boot off of the USB stick, so that way we can install Windows not on RAID and then actually test everything. So BIOS 3.8, they've added the RAID function so you can actually disable it, which is awesome, because I also was thinking of another scary issue, is if that this is configured in RAID in the BIOS and you're locked out of it. If you ever want to change your NVMEs or upgrade them or whatever you want to do, you can't, because it's configured the RAID for the drives that are in there. So if we go back over and let's say that we were going to configure a RAID, we're going to create a RAID volume. In here, you have to pick the devices that are in here. And if we can't get into this menu to pick these drives, then we can never set up another RAID again if we ever wanted to. And given that this only boots off of RAID, if you change the NVMEs, you're done. You can't do anything else. You can't configure it back to RAID, and you can't install Windows on RAID again, ever. I'm glad they added that, because that was a very scary issue, that if you ever have NVMe failure, like it's very rare, but if you did ever have it, or if you wanted to upgrade your drives, you literally have to give up RAID in order to essentially fix your computer. Now, the only part that kind of sucks here is this RAID. This is why we're back in here. I'm just gonna show you real quick. We only have RAID 0 as an option. So it's still really limited, the setup and everything, because we can't do RAID 1. So if you just wanted to have one, say you bought a 2 terabyte NVMe and the capacity was fine, so you wanted 2 terabytes, but you wanted to have RAID 1, so that way you have redundancy and you have a complete clone backup of everything that's in the computer, you can't. That's not an option. They don't allow you to have that. So again, Asus with their Apple tendencies of blocking people out from being able to do everything. Like, I mean, I get it. People who don't know about this stuff can basically just disable RAID and then their computer won't boot because it was installed as a RAID configuration, and they'll screw everything up and it gets sent back for like RMA or whatever, and then Asus has to fix it. But at the same time, I really think computer manufacturers should start going back to the dual BIOS setups, kind of the way that the older Asus laptops used to have, where they would have the regular BIOS that you'd get into, and then they'd have like a developer one that you could get into, which had all of the options as well as overclocking and everything unlocked. So you could actually mess with things, and knowing that you can get in there, and then like Samsung phones with Knox, it flips a flag saying that you've messed with it. So that way they know that you messed with it. It was your fault if something went wrong. Whereas in the regular BIOS, everything was locked within a safe manner to keep everything from actually going south. So that was a really cool feature that Asus used to have, and most manufacturers have gotten rid of that, which kind of sucks. But now we're dealing with this. At least we got the option, and I can actually boot it. So now I'm going to install Windows. I'm actually going to install Windows this time. Okay, we're back at the screen where we should have been before. I've gone through the setup and everything, getting to this point here, entered the Windows 10 serial number. Also, this comes with Windows 10, obviously. Obviously, it comes with Windows 10. I don't know why I'm mentioning that. But the serial number and everything is paired to the BIOS, so you don't need to enter like your product key for Windows 10 again. However, I'm using a different version of Windows 10 where you actually have to activate that. So you have to enter your serial number, so that way I can upgrade to Windows 10 Pro, because I have multiple licenses of Windows 10 Pro. Now that I have those, now we're going to be installing Windows 10 Pro, and I'm going to be installing it on drive 1. This is basically only for my instance because I'm going to be running Linux primarily. So my main boot drive is going to be Linux, and the secondary one is going to be Windows. So in case I ever need Windows, that's the only reason I'm keeping this. Because like I don't really use Windows, but you know, sometimes there's some programs where you need Windows, kind of like when I put that laptop together so I can mess around with the Samsung phone. So like now I'll actually have a dedicated drive in here for Windows. Everything's good, everything's fine. Drive 1 is my secondary drive, 0, 1, so that's drive 2, and we're going to be installing Windows on this one. Now it's installing Windows. Now we'll come back when it's done. Windows is done. I haven't even done any updates or anything yet. I just went through the setup, got to the desktop, shut it right off. So now we're gonna do a boot test. So this is a single NVMe, not in RAID 0. I'm gonna try and start these at the exact same time. Ah, damn it, I missed it. Okay, let's just try it again. Just turn it off. Just turn it off. Accept my defeat. Okay, so let's try it again. Get this ready. It was like 12 seconds, 12, 13 seconds or whatever. Before... What? How was that faster? It was like 9 seconds. Okay, hold on. I have to do this again. What? Shut down. How was... Let's try it again. Get like right in there. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, it's like an 8 to 9 second boot time, and literally out of the box it was 12. Okay, fun fact that I was not expecting is if you want this computer to be faster, apparently disable RAID. I guess the RAID controller in the BIOS, it must take a long time to actually like configure and set up and everything. I really have no idea. Like, I guess this has to be the RAID controller. So the RAID controller probably actually takes time to boot up so it can then initiate Windows, which would be the additional like 4 to 5 seconds or whatever boot time, or 3 to 5 seconds in there. So we actually increased the boot time by like 3 to 5 seconds by removing RAID. Okay. Okay, so that could not have gone any better. So now this computer is even faster than it was before, and I'm going to be able to dual boot Linux and Windows on this with separate drives. So now I'm going to install Linux. Linux is installed. Now we can do a boot test on this to see how fast it is. And because I set this one up as drive 0, this is going to be the first drive that it boots off of, so it'll automatically boot into Linux every time. And if I want to select Windows, I just go to the boot settings and then I can pick Windows from there. So we're going to turn it on. Okay. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay, so like 11, 12 seconds, somewhere around there. So that means that with Linux, we have the exact same boot speed as the factory RAID 0 configuration. I haven't done any optimization or anything yet, so I haven't gone through the grub menu or anything to speed anything up there, so we can probably get a little bit more out of it there and get it closer to the, like 9 seconds for Windows. But then we also removed like 4-ish seconds off of the Windows boot time. So this thing's friggin' mint. This is awesome. Like, I don't know what else to say. If you're doing like programming or whatever, or just want to dual boot for whatever reason, then like this thing is absolutely deadly. Like, ignoring the second screen and just a laptop in general, it's stupid fast. I don't even remember what the specs are. It's some kind of like 10th gen i7, whatever. That it doesn't matter anymore because they're all so fast that it literally doesn't matter. There's no bottlenecks from pretty much any i7 CPU now. It's a GTX 1070 Super, I think, the 8GB one, which is again going to be excessive for doing coding and stuff. So just as like a programming productivity computer, this thing is fantastic. So we can run things here. We can have everything going. This is where the main amount of work. And then if I ever need to look up anything, I could have like W3 schools and stuff at the bottom. I could have like YouTube or something open, like monitoring comments or whatever. I could literally be doing so much more because of the second screen. I really don't know what else to say about this thing because it's freaking mint. I'm gonna do some more optimization, try and get the boot time closer to Windows, but essentially, like, if you just round it off, you know, like get an average number across, it's got about a 10-second boot time. Now that we've removed RAID that was currently configured, and we've installed Windows and Linux on separate drives, boots in about 10 seconds, you have tons of versatility. It definitely has the performance power behind it to actually get going. The RGB, you don't need any specific software for it in Linux because it carries over. It saves all the profile settings and everything in the BIOS. So once you set it in Windows, it carries over into Linux, which is great. My desktop does the exact same thing, so I love that feature because I don't need any software on Linux to control the RGB. I never adjust it. So once it's set, it's done. Just purple everything, purple, white, whatever. Just like that's the only things that I do. So once it's set up, I never have to touch it. So that's done, awesome, perfect. And with Windows and this having the gaming power behind it, I actually can play some games on this. I could probably sell my Xbox or something and use this as the replacement. So for me, I'm going from the HP Spectre X360 over to this, which is obviously like a ridiculous upgrade, but I'm also gaining essentially a second computer, a second display, and a game console. So it's like the ultimate threat for me. It does absolutely everything, and then I have my desktop as just the absolute raw performance for doing video editing and everything, and then I can also carry on coding on that because I have everything allocated. Well, I haven't done it yet, but I have everything allocated, so all of the documents and stuff get synced to Google Drive. So if I'm working on any projects or anything, when I save the project, it syncs to Google Drive, and then I can go to the desktop and pull that from Google Drive, and they're both set up natively through the operating system, so I literally don't have to do anything. It's just in my documents folder, and it's just there. So it's a complete seamless setup, and I absolutely love the way this works. Also, Google Drive is significantly cheaper because it's 2 terabytes for whatever it is Canadian. I don't even know, like $13, $15, something in the ballpark of that. OneDrive doesn't even offer a 2 terabyte option. They offer 6, but you need multiple accounts to actually access that. So you literally can't even get more than 1 terabyte. Not that I need more than one, but it's just price to capacity ratio. Google is the best. I've also looked into like Mega, Dropbox, Amazon Drive. I've looked into all of those. Google Drive is the cheapest to capacity, and it's really fast, and it has seamless integration in Linux. So that's why I use it. Nothing can compete with Google Drive for Linux, at least for what I've found. Well, except for Nextcloud, but I don't have a Nextcloud cloud client set up yet. Maybe I'll do that. Maybe I could set up a Nextcloud. But that's basically it for this. This is my new laptop. This is what I'm going to be doing everything on now with tons of versatility. So I'm definitely happy with this thing. So if you like this, if you got something useful out of it, then like the video. If you knew everything about this and this is just a giant waste of time, then dislike it. Subscribe if you haven't. That's super cool. I always enjoy that. That helps a lot. Or, just don't do any of it because I'm not telling you what to do.